Cabinet also reflected on the concerns expressed by traditional leaders on land and land-related matters. As a result, Cabinet has appointed a team of Cabinet ministers to interact with the traditional leaders to discuss and seek amicable solutions to the areas of concern with regard to land restitution and land expropriation. The Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Dr. Zwelini Mkhize, will be the convener, who will be supported by the Minister of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, Minister Senzeni Zokwana, the Minister of Rural Development and Land Reform, Minister Maite Mashabane, as well as the Minister of Communications, Minister Nomvula Mokonyane. We do hope, however, that with all that is happening throughout the country, we will find a better and an amicable solution in appreciating that, yes, land is an emotional issue. Yes, the priority for government is about inclusive growth. It's about making sure that there's equality in the ownership patterns of land. It is about making sure that we have new role players in the agricultural sector, and of importance, we also contribute towards urban growth by opening up land in the urban areas for our own communities to own property and to be closer to areas of economic opportunity. It is on those bases that the team would be interacting as of tomorrow with the various structures of traditional leaders, such as the House of Traditional Leaders, would also be engaging with members of the media. We are in the process of meeting with all affected and interested parties, including engagement with Ngonyama Trust, because all that is out in the public is not up until now government positions. These are initiatives of the parliamentary process. Government is committed in ensuring that we focus on what is of primary importance, the dispossession of the South Africans with regard to land ownership, the growing of the economy, the creation of a non-racial and prosperous South Africa through the change in terms of land ownership. The other area that Cabinet looked at was on the tax season, where Cabinet encourages all taxpayers to submit their annual tax returns for the 2017-2018 tax season that opened for filing on the 1st of July 2018. Proper and efficient revenue collection ensures fiscal sovereignty and timeliness as well as accurate submissions to ensure that taxpayers remain compliant. Tax revenue helps government to fund the country's service delivery projects and other socio-economic development programs. The next area is on the petrol price increase. Cabinet has noted the recent fuel price increase, which follows an increase seen in June and with another fuel price increase anticipated in August. The Brent crude oil dollar-denominated price has been affecting the general prices of the petrol, diesel, and paraffin. Our currency, the rand's exchange rate to the US dollar, has also declined by more than 1% since the beginning of May this year, with implications on fuel prices. These cyclical currency changes, which result in price fluctuations, have impacted negatively on ordinary South Africans, the consumers, particularly the poor. The rise in petrol prices directly affects the transport costs, the food prices, particularly the cost of staple food and medicine, precisely because it affects the movement of the agricultural products from source to the markets. Cabinet assures South Africans that government is making an effort to alleviate the challenges faced by poor communities. National Treasury has appointed a 9-member panel of experts to review the current list of value-added tax zero-rated items, currently consisting of only 19 basic food items. President Cyril Ramaphosa is leading the team, comprising of representatives from both government and the private sector, to draw in more investors into the country so as to grow our economy and create much needed jobs, particularly for the unemployed youth. We also are quite keen to make sure that the Department of Energy also looks at the capacity of South Africa in making sure that it is capable of having its own infrastructure and services, including resources, a new refinery as a possibility that we must all invest in. And in due course, Minister Jeff Radebe will be addressing the nation on these particular interventions, including the review of the MPRDA as one of those matters, and many other factors that are quite important. Because we are an oil consumer nation, we do get affected by what is happening outside, where we actually are the purchasers of oil. And precisely because of the depreciation of the rand, it is all these factors that actually inhibit our ability to deal with the cost of oil, which is a key ingredient to the resources that have seen their prices actually escalating. And we hope that you will, members of the public, appreciate once Minister Jeff Radebe briefs the nation that the South African government shares the concerns, the frustrations, the anxieties, but we are quite committed in making sure that there is an appreciation of the realities, as well as how best we can then invest for the future and make sure that we avoid what is actually happening for now. We appeal also to the private sector in the spirit of Tumamina to lend a hand by delaying to transfer the impact of the fuel prices to the consumer. This will go a long way in cushioning the poor who will be directly affected by these price fluctuations. Growing our economy will go a long way in stabilizing our economy. Cabinet also appeals to the private sector to partner with government for the benefit of all affected South Africans, particularly the poor. The other area that we reflected on was on the payment of social grants. We were briefed as Cabinet by the Minister of Social Development, Susan Shabangu, on the recent widespread delays in scheduled social grant payments to beneficiaries. Cabinet appreciates that social grants are a lifeline to the most vulnerable members of our society, and therefore such inconvenience is very much regrettable. An experience that we have ceased to see over years is something that we must all humbly apologize to those who have been highly affected, and hope that both the Post Office, SASSA, and all other parties would make sure that this does not actually repeat itself. We express once more our sincere apologies and the inconvenience and humiliation that beneficiaries have been exposed to. They are the most vulnerable, and they are the ones that we cannot, with all our own internal processes of the migration from CPS to SASSA and to other alternative payments, they cannot be a casualty of our own inefficiencies. Minister Shabangu further then assured us in Cabinet that the technical malfunctions were a result of the transition of the payments from an old system to a new South African Social Security Agency, as well as South African Post Office system. She has assured Cabinet that most of the affected beneficiaries have since been paid. Meanwhile, dedicated teams are hard at work, ensuring that they stabilize the systems to prevent a recurrence of such delays in the future. But Cabinet also has indicated that there will be site visits to the affected areas, so that then there is an appreciation of what exactly the challenges are and how do we prevent the challenges going into the future. Once more, we apologize to the vulnerable, well-deserving beneficiaries of our social grants. On the health inquiry, Cabinet welcomes the release today of the interim report by the Competition Market Inquiry into the private healthcare industry. The inquiry is chaired by the ex-Chief Justice Sandile Ngcobo and has had evidence from a number of stakeholders in the past 3 years. The provisional report will be open for public comments for a period of 2 months. The final report will be submitted to the Minister of Economic Development by the end of 2018 and will be tabled later in Parliament. On the Khartoum Declaration, Cabinet welcomes the agreement on a permanent ceasefire between South Sudan President Salva Kiir and Riek Machar and the signing of the Khartoum Declaration. This raises hope of a deal to end their country's devastating war. The declaration stipulates that the ceasefire arrangement includes disengagement, separation of forces in close proximity, withdrawal of all allied troops, opening of humanitarian corridors, and the release of prisoners of war and political detainees. The agreement also allows members of the African Union and the Intergovernmental Authority on Development to deploy forces to supervise the ceasefire. Cabinet encourages all parties to work together to ensure that the ceasefire finally leads to ending the war and ensure the return of peace and economic development in South Sudan. On the African Continental Free Trade Area, Cabinet welcomed South Africa's signing of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement with the AU. The signing of this agreement by South Africa brings the number of countries who have signed the agreement to 49. The agreement takes the continent closer to the creation of the world's biggest free trade area. It is expected to yield great socio-economic benefits for all countries in the continent. According to the United Nations, it is estimated that the area will boost intra-Africa trade by 53%. The agreement will boost intra-Africa trade by 53% by eliminating import duties and non-tariff barriers. This agreement is potentially poised to create an African market of more than 1.2 billion people with an economy worth $2.5 trillion US. The Minister of Trade and Industry, Mr. Rob Davis, will commence the process to get the agreement ratified through Parliament and will continuously brief the nation on the progress as it gets implemented. On the African agenda, Cabinet welcomes the 6th Southern African Customs Union Summit held on the 29th of June in Botswana, which was attended by His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa. The summit underscored the importance of the regional integration agenda that promotes economic integration, industrialization, and economic diversification of the SACU economies. His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa also led a delegation to the Islamic Republic of Mauritania for the 31st Ordinary Session of the Assembly of AU Heads of State and Government. The summit took place from the 1st to the 2nd of July 2018 under the theme, Winning the Fight Against Corruption, a Sustainable Path of Africa's Transformation. It presented a unique opportunity to reflect on and address specific challenges related to the fight against corruption in Africa. His Excellency President Ramaphosa is currently hosting a state visit by his Ghanaian counterpart, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, from the 4th to the 5th of July 2018 to further strengthen bilateral relations between the two nations. South Africa and Ghana continue to enjoy strong relations anchored by a shared history of friendship and solidarity. Trade and investment cooperation between the two nations include mining, retail, insurance, science and technology, transport, tourism, banking, telecommunications, construction services, franchising, manufacturing, advertising, aviation, as well as energy. The following are the decisions that Cabinet took. Cabinet approved the concept paper and plan for the National Women's Day and month in August 2018. The theme for this year's August month is 100 years of Albertina Nontsikelelo Sisulu, Women United in Moving South Africa Forward. This year's program coincides with the triple centenaries of the birth of Nelson Mandela, Albertina Sisulu, and the formation of the Bantu Women's League. The Women's Month activities will mobilize society and build partnerships to decisively address key issues facing women and girls, particularly gender-based violence, women's economic empowerment, access to land, harmful practices, and other sectoral issues in the context of the NDP and South Africa's international commitments. The Minister in the Presidency, Minister Bathabile Dlamini, will unpack the full program for the Women's Month at a later stage. The following are the bills that have been approved. Cabinet approved the submission of the National Gambling Amendment Bill of 2018 to Parliament. The bill has already gone through public consultation with all relevant stakeholders. The bill makes intervention in the electronic gambling, advertising of gambling, and location of gambling premises. It also replaces the current National Gambling Board with the National Gambling Regulator. Working with the provincial authorities, the National Gambling Regulator will develop the standard operating criteria that will serve as a mini-standard to guide self-regulating bodies such as in the horse racing sector. Cabinet approved the submission of the Competition Amendment Bill of 2018 to Parliament. The amendments provide for an extension of the mandate of the competition authorities and the executive to address high levels of economic concentration, limited transformation in the South African economy, and abuse of market power by dominant firms. The bill has already been gazetted for public comment and discussed with all relevant stakeholders. The following are the upcoming events. Under the umbrella of the National Send Me to Mamina campaign, led by the Government Communication and Information System, a historic 100 years of Nelson Mandela and Albertina Sisulu Men's March Against Violence and Women and Children will take place on Tuesday the 10th, 2018. The march is being coordinated by the GCIS, which will start at 10 from Church Square and end at the southern lawns of the Union Buildings in Pretoria. Cabinet invites all men and boys to respond to the Send Me to Mamina rallying call by participating in the march and taking a stand against the scourge of violence against women and children. Men from diverse sectors, racial, political, and religious backgrounds will be united in their stance to stop violence against women and children and be the legacy. On the National Imbizo Focus Week, government will embark on its National Imbizo Focus Week from the 9th to the 15th of July 2018, where members of the executive will engage directly with citizens across the country. One of the cornerstones of the democratic South Africa has been government's steadfast commitment to embark on regular participatory and responsive public engagement programs to outline government policies and plans. We will also be responding to issues that have been raised and have come out when the National Council of Provinces have gone out to meet communities in the Free State, communities in KwaZulu-Natal, communities in Mpumalanga, and everywhere in the country, so that then when we go in to lend a hand, ours will not be to listen as to what the challenges are, but we must be seen to be responding and resolving matters on the ground. We encourage our communities in the spirit of Tumamina to participate in this Imbizo with government officials and use the opportunity to address service delivery challenges as well as societal concerns and issues and find an amicable way to resolve those challenges. South Africa is ready to host, in the spirit of Ubuntu Humanity, the 10th summit of the Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, known as BRICS bloc, from the 25th to the 27th of July 2018 at the Sandton Convention Center in Gauteng. On Friday, the 6th of July 2018, His Excellency President Ramaphosa is scheduled to engage with Team South Africa over breakfast on the state of readiness to host the 10th BRICS Summit. The theme, BRICS in Africa, Collaboration for Inclusive Growth and Shared Prosperity in the Fourth Industrial Revolution, reflects the core priorities of the BRICS members, notably to strive towards the creation of an inclusive society and global partnerships that will bring prosperity to all humankind. The theme also aligns and ensures strategic continuity with South Africa's chairpersonship of both the Southern African Development Community and the Indian Ocean Rim Association. South Africa will use its chairpersonship of BRICS to ensure continuity for BRICS and to bring specific focus to the opportunities of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. On the Roundtable of African Ministers of Arts and Culture, the Department of Arts and Culture is hosting the Roundtable of African Ministers of Arts and Culture in Durban from the 5th to the 6th of July 2018. The event seeks to report on information access, to profile the impact of library and information services within the context of the AU Agenda 2063, which is a strategic framework for the socio-economic transformation of Africa over the next 50 years.